All right, welcome to another episode of the Nebraska Gentleman. Today we are joined by a special guest. I met him, I had the opportunity and privilege to meet him in 2017 at a Kings Mill Youth Summit at my old alma mater, Springfield College, where he came to speak with other black male professionals to younger youth ages 11 to 18 on helping them build insight, life skills, and motivation to also become successful professionals. He joins us from Richmond, Virginia, where he resides with his wife as an assistant general manager and director of marketing for an arena in Central Virginia. His name is Nate Harris. Good evening, Nate.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's been a while since I've seen you, so it's really good to see you, and I'm glad we were able to connect on this.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, I'm thankful that we kept in touch, and thank you for listeners that don't know. He is a great husband who was just making dinner for his wife, and he took the time to
Absolutely.
join me, so I appreciate it.
Yeah,
So,
man. You gotta make priorities around here.
absolutely, absolutely. So, Nate, my first question would be: I'd like for you to tell me just about your career and job duties now, and what led you to it. Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, so I was I'm a sport management major, and was really focused to kind of enter into the sports industry. Thought I would be, a coach or really wanted to be a player as a youth. Everybody wants to be an NBA player, but really was focused on trying to build a career in professional sports and athletics, specifically basketball. And then upon graduating from school, actually graduated in 2008 in the downturn of the economy, and a lot of the positions and jobs that I had opportunities for, including one of a professional team. Um, were starting to go away. And so really kind of had to shift my career angle in terms of where I wanted to work in, but still maintain that sports angle. And after about a year and a half after graduating, was able to land my first career job with the Basketball Hall of Fame. And then from there, worked at my first arena in Springfield, Massachusetts, which was great for me, kind of returning back to Springfield where I went to school. From there, really, I came in as a marketing manager, and I was just working hard. 2 years there, I was promoted to director of marketing, and was able to stay in Massachusetts, not too far to another arena there in Massachusetts. And then the opportunity came to go to our headquarters office in Philadelphia. And so, from this perspective, I really it was the perspective I was working at was venue management or arena management and with a marketing focus. And so a lot of my job and my role was around promoting and marketing the events that were coming into the arena, making sure that the community and every around were aware of what was going on, and then being able to sell tickets to those events. But also it also included, some public relations, it included some, um, you know, day-to-day website development and creative design, and just kind of the full gamut of what marketing and sales really entailed. And so I was joking. I tell people, I have the best job in the world. I sell to people stuff that they don't need, excuse me, the stuff that they want, and it's a chance to be entertained and to be able to come out of their home and enjoy live entertainment. I really wanted to get around professional sports, and so I had the chance to go to Philadelphia. Got to work at the number one arena down in Philadelphia, and really got to see firsthand some of the top world class performances, and it was incredible. And then life kind of takes you on a turn, and you got to make decisions that are priorities for you. And but with hard work and true building relationships and building strong relationships, was able to transition with the same company to move back home. At the time, I had just proposed to my now wife, and at the same time, she had gotten accepted into her doctoral program in Boston. And it was one of those moments. It was actually the same week, and so I was planning on proposing on that Saturday, and she found out on the Monday before I proposed that she was accepted into the doctoral program. And I said, I was laughing, and I'm like, man, this just ruined all my plans. I'm gonna have to move. I was planning to move her to Philadelphia. We were gonna just be
Yeah.
all set, and it was really kind of just a shift at that moment. And so, um, was able to transition back to Springfield, Mass. Fortunately enough, At the same time, she started the first year of her doctoral program as a director of marketing at the Arena and Convention Center there. And then we got married that summer of 2016, and I moved to Boston. And we joined her in Boston as she finished up her doctoral program. And as I kind of was shifting, I was able to be promoted again to assistant general manager for an arena and auditorium just outside of Boston. And so at that time, it's around the time we had actually met each other. And ironically enough, a couple of friends of mine, we had started the Male Youth Summit, Constructing Kings Male Youth Summit, and we were fortunate enough to be able to, one, meet, but also engage with a lot of young people throughout Massachusetts as a whole. Um, as you know, I kind of tell people, sometimes love always kind of drags you in different ways. My wife got an awesome opportunity in Richmond, Virginia, as she concluded her doctoral program, which transitioned to Sierra, Virginia. And again, through good, strong relationships and opportunities to connect with a lot of people, I was able to transition down here with the same company as an assistant general manager, director of marketing for another arena. And so really have been fortunate to just have my hands in college athletics, professional athletics, some top concerts and performances in the world. And so I've been very fortunate and blessed in my career to be able to still get that sports and entertainment feel every single day in my job, and being able to still grow in with the company that I found very fortunate to be with.
Yeah, Nate, yeah, a lot of history there, and like kind of, shifting, especially with the proposal, and then, your wife being accepted into doctoral school, and just a great, great, amazing journey. And I imagine too, how do you juggle having friends and family that probably ask you to comp them, tickets for events and whatnot?
So I try to set there's only one person who can get free tickets from me. And that's my wife.
Good answer. Good answer.
No, I mean seriously. I mean, a lot of friends and family always ask for events and concert tickets. I have one of my sisters who's a huge, boy band fan. And be like, hey, do you know somebody who can get me tickets to this? And I'm like, hey, I don't, or I do, and I can ask. I don't know. And honestly, it's just being honest with them and just saying, hey, I don't have them available to me, or if I do, see if I can be able to offer to them. They do come often, and sometimes someone will try to get one over me to try to get here, but there's not much you can do to get me to give you a free ticket. It's funny, especially as I've gotten more on the general management side of things. When you start looking at the numbers and looking and saying, hey, every time I give you a free ticket, I need you to at least to spend the value of the ticket in my arena. People kind of like, all right, well, I was just going to come and chill, but I'm like, nah, I need to spend money if you're going to come for free.
And I imagine overall, Nate, they're thankful, and you got a good family member that has good taste. If she likes Boys II Men and Backstreet Boys, I'll say that. With sports, really taking, being out of the picture for some time now in concerts, how has that affected your job, and how have you been able to handle that during this time?
It's actually impacted us pretty strongly. As you can imagine, with when COVID-19 kind of became a realistic thing, it was really sports that kind of tipped over the catalyst for folks to say, no, this thing is really serious, right? And it was, Rudy Gobert from the NBA was diagnosed, and the NBA said, all right, we're shutting the season down. And after that, it was just a domino effect of how people were taking it seriously. I mean, we kind of heard early in the year that it was something. But what was really impactful for us is never in the history of our industry have we been this dormant for so long. And so, I've talked to a lot of industry professionals who were doing this way before I've been doing it. Around 9/11, we saw a lot of huge impact of people not coming. We stopped events for a little while because we had a large number of people and we didn't want to avoid any incidents with large number of people. But never have we had a moment where everything has completely stopped, and we are really not able to. We don't have an answer of when we're actually going to be able to get back to doing events. The difference, however, I think, is the technology. And fortunate enough technology has advanced so far where we're able to do things a little bit more virtually. Example, this interview that we're doing right now. And I think the fact of the matter is, I think a lot of venues and a lot of folks are trying to get as creative as possible in ways we can create entertainment and create content for people to absorb virtually as best as possible. However, I will always say this from the bottom of my heart: it will never meet and never match the experience of going to a live event. The energy and the feeling of being at a live sporting event or a live concert event will never be the same as watching on your screen at home. And as it's funny, I watched the Becoming tour with Beyonce probably 3 or 4 times, probably more than I want to admit. Part half of it's because of my wife, I'll say that. But I
Sure,
actually
sure, sure.
no, and in all seriousness, I would sit and watch that show probably more than people would realize, only because it was one of the greatest live performances I've ever seen. And that was just virtual. I watched it on my screen at home,
So
right?
imagine what it would have been
But
like.
if I was
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
the energy and the feeling that you could feel is completely unmatched. And the beauty about what music and entertainment and sports does is it brings communities and people together. And I said, it's so even if I'm watching it at home, I'm still watching home alone. Versus if I'm in an arena and I'm sitting next to somebody I don't know, or we're both singing the same lyrics to a song, or we're both cheering for the same play that just happened on the court. Those moments are indelible for me and are really important. Of why live events are so important. And right now, we just can't do that, and we don't know when we'll get back to that. So it's been very impactful. It's taken extreme financial hits for us, taken personnel hits for us, um, and no one is immune from that, even myself. And so the things we do just to keep ourselves going is kind of create what we can virtually. Try to continue to keep our audiences engaged through communications, emails. Try to do some virtual events and kind of do some things like that. Right now, a big wave right now is trying to do outdoor events at the arenas, whether it's parking. Um, I saw an article just today. Miami Dolphins football stadium, Hard Rock Stadium. They just did a Lion King's movie night where you drove into the stadium in your cars, you sat in your car, and you watched it on the screens. Um, and so really trying to figure out ways to reinvent the model of what live entertainment looks like and sporting events look like, um, and then moving forward from there. I think what's been interesting also watching is how professional sports are trying to adjust to that piece of it, right? Is the power of having the fans there is going to go away. But do we continue to be able to bring that same feeling back for folks if we can put it on television? And so television is able to fund a lot of those programs and a lot of those professional sports, but your collegiate athletics and your minor league athletics and those different sporting are really going to be impacted because they don't have that revenue from television make up to be able to operate their sports and their events. And so it'll be interesting to see when we can actually get back to business as normal.
Yeah, and Nate, I'm excited to, hear what you and your team come up with, what creative minds come up with. That. I mean, I didn't even hear about that Dolphins thing, so that's very interesting. You've
Yeah,
had,
the Texas Rangers, I believe they're trying to do a music festival, and it's going to be a day long of music, of live concert, but everyone's in their cars. And so it's going to be interesting to see a lot of those groups actually try to be creative. We've tried a couple of things, and I've learned and had to humbly learn that my technological skills can only go so far. And when it comes to trying to make sure I'm using the OBS systems, make sure screen switches happen or throw graphics in, it just I just couldn't get there. And so just really and I just had to say, you know what, Nate, start small. So we're going to try to do an IG live event in the coming weeks, and so just see if we can at least just engage our audience, engage our
yeah, slowly but surely, and little stuff like that will help.
fans. Absolutely.
You've worked in some great popular sports cities, Philadelphia and Boston, with the latter at times having the reputation of fans maybe not being the kindest, especially when it comes to race. A couple weeks ago, we heard from former MLB outfield magician Torrey Hunter sharing how he had a no trade clause to Boston because of the countless times he was called the N word and obvious as a road opponent. In your time in your career, whether it was in any of these cities or Virginia or so, if you don't have to be specific, but I'm just curious to learn, has there been anything that you've observed while at work or experienced yourself because of race?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been having a lot of these conversations lately due to a lot of unrest that we've had in the country over the last 2.5 weeks. And I would say yes. There's been instances in my career where I've had to deal with things because of race. And what I found for me might have been very microaggressions per se. And so there's nothing overt and straight up, and like it's not straight up calling me the N word or saying you can't do this because you're black. Um, but I mean, even just small things. For example, um, in an arena, you have instances where you have backup stage, backup house, and where it's only restricted, everything's credentialed, and you have to only can walk past here if you have a credential. And there's been instances where I got stopped and say, "Hey, are you supposed to be back here?" And I'll show my credential, or maybe I forgot my credential, but I'll show my work pass, or and things like that. Those are small microaggressions that I've had to deal with. As I've gotten more lead up in my management level in the business, a lot of the work I do is external relations in terms of meeting with business owners, meeting with the local community, and connecting that with our venue. And there's been instances where someone doesn't want to talk to me, so they'll communicate via somebody else to let me know they don't want to talk with me. Extreme microaggression stuff that has happened to me. Um, and what I found is in those moments for myself, I have for years kind of just said, that's what it was. I'm cool with it. I've dealt with this all my life in a micro way. And I can continue to do my work and still do my business. It's not going to impact how I do my work. But lately, over the last year, I've really tried to start thinking about those, not even the last year, but the last couple of weeks, really. And really thinking about what does those microaggressions at work, what does that mean? Um, and how is it impacting me personally, right? And how do I, one, call it out for what it is, and or is it something that can be passed over and continue to do what I need to do? And being in more of a leadership position, it allows me to call it out for what it is. And that's something that I'm grateful for the privilege to be able to be in that position to do that. But it has been it becomes extremely important for me to make sure I'm doing that and making sure I'm taking the time to realize when things like that are happening. And so it's definitely happened to me, but it's definitely something that I'm more attuned to now, where I've just in the past, in my youth, kind of was just like moving along and kind of just saying, that must have been that. And just keep
Well, Nate, I want to actually get on that because I know people are probably, when they listen to this, will be asking, why is it now that you would speak up? So, can you share with us, for some that are unaware, why wouldn't you speak up when you were in maybe lesser of a role positions where you weren't in the leadership position?
So I think there's two reasons. So the first reason would be there was some caution in terms of my career of how I needed to maneuver. So I was very fortunate where I was able to find my voice pretty quickly with the company I worked for and was working a lot of diversity and inclusion initiatives for the company. And so it put me in a position to be able to have a lot of the conversations that made people a little uncomfortable around that piece of it. But as it relates to doing external relations within the communities that I was working at, it was a little different because within my work structure, I had a little bit of a safety net. It was, oh, Nate's working on this, so he can have these conversations, or he's going to call you on this because he's working on this. But when I go out into the community and I have to deal with things like that, it's a little different because now I'm representing the building and the venue, and it can impact my business opportunities for my job. And so it became very challenging to be able to find that balance. But more importantly, I think for me over the last couple of weeks, I've actually done a lot of evolution of myself. And I've looked at my experience as a Black male for even prior to entering to the business world and entering my career. And the experience that I've had as a individual, I grew up in a more of a sheltered environment where my parents were able to avoid me from a lot of the aggressions and the racism that the world really presented itself. And as grateful as I was for that, I really had to learn for myself what that was, that actually was. And I learned when I went to college, and I learned when I continued to enter into the business world of what that those actions and what those behaviors and what those comments actually meant. And when I started to be able to realize those things, and become more aware of how that was actually impacting me and how I even showed up every day in my day to day, I've been really more cautious in terms of thinking about what is that that I just saw, or what was just said to me. What is that? Where is it coming from? How is it impacting me, and how am I going to let it impact me? And is this something that I need to address, or something that I can leave alone? And that's definitely been a part of it that I think is been different for me over recently. Is I'm being more intentional on being aware and dissecting it, and then deciding what my action is going to
And yeah, it takes a lot of can imagine mindfulness, and sometimes it can maybe be exhaustion or draining. So I'd be curious to learn how you balance those thoughts out while still remaining focused at your job.
So the reality of it is, I never define myself by what other people say about me. And so because I have a strong sense of internal worth and a strong sense of knowing who I am and what I'm about and what their perceptions maybe of me are incorrect and I don't have to validate that, has allowed me to be able to find that balance. I think now as I grow older, I'm now taking on the responsibility of calling people out on it, right? But for me, it doesn't impact who I think about myself or who I know I am for myself. And I surround myself around people who know me for who I am, so that I'm able to then be rebuilt up if it does impact or affect me, rebuilt up around those who are
Yep, who know who you are and also respect you. So,
absolutely.
Nate, going off what you were just sharing, you and your wife are expecting a beautiful baby later this fall. And I'm getting excited to say congratulations. That's exciting news.
Thank you.
On the other end of that, I'm curious to learn for you, being somebody who will be a future father, are there any concerns, questions that you and your wife have really had to think more of or talk about, being a Black couple in America, having a future Black child?
Yeah, it's not only a black child, it's a black son.
Oh,
And
okay. There we go. It would have been
and
nice if it was a girl too, but yeah.
it would be great if it was a girl.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely a black son. And we have had started to have those conversations. And I think for me, after the passing of George Floyd and with the following civil unrest, it impacted me a little bit different than when I was with Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown. And I realized something the other day, and even in just our conversation. When we first met, it was at the Constructing Kingsmill Youth Summit. That piece of it, right, happened when we started that program. Me and friends of mine started that program. It was our impetus was the Mike Brown, the Trayvon Martin killings, and how do we construct and build our young Black men to be able to navigate our world so we don't have to hear about the next Trayvon Martin, the next Mike Brown. And now we're here at this juncture in our lives where I'm now about to enter into fatherhood for a young man. And I mean, I was probably for about 3 days pretty dumbstruck. I was kind of numb for a little bit. And it wasn't the numbness about seeing the death of George Floyd, as tragic as it was. It wasn't necessarily empathizing with a lot of the unrest and people who were out protesting and doing the work there. It really was the heavy weight of the responsibility as a Black male father, being a father figure to the next generation of Black men coming into this world. And around that responsibility, I was extremely heavy around it, and I couldn't figure out why. When I was talking with about it, and I actually had been doing therapy and kind of working on figuring out why I was feeling these things, was really learned that there is a level of responsibility that is there to be able to protect, to educate, and then to empower. And I think around that is really what has been what my wife and I and me specifically have been really thinking about how we do that for him and for our nephews, and what that looks like for us. And it's being the best of you. It's being genuine to yourself. It's not compromising who you are to meet someone else's status quo or someone else's perception of you. It's being you. And and how do I do that as a black father and as a father? Is I be me. I be genuine to myself. I be authentic around him. I feel the things I feel and express those things. If I need to cry, I cry. If I need to shout, I shout. Those are the things that become genuine, and those become the examples for us. So our son, who in my prayer is that when he enters into this world as a young adult, the world's in a way better place and we won't have to deal with a lot of things that we are. But knowing that if it isn't, he's prepared to enter into it and to be the greatest that he can.
Hey, you're going to have a very, very blessed son, to say the least, because what you and the group of men did, starting and building Young Kings for the Male Youth Summit, you guys very much inspired me to do something um, similar for, maybe in a couple of years when I still have my career under my belt, to provide that for others where I'm from in Nebraska, or if I'm remaining out here in Connecticut. So I just want to again say thank you for providing that vision for young guys like me too, and thank you for sharing that and the fact that how you've been able to utilize therapy to really process all of these things.
Yeah, it can become taboo to talk about, especially for black men. Um, and it was my wife who kind of pushed me to get to that place, and so I give her all credit. But it has been extremely powerful for me in my development and my growth, to even just express some of the things that I have been holding on to. And it gave me a safe place to do it. But in that, it allowed me to realize things and to see things in a different vision than when me being in my own head, just going around and around with it, right? And then once you start talking it out, all of a sudden it becomes clear. And I was like, I don't know why I didn't do this before. Right? But I definitely encourage a lot of folks to do that. Between that and my faith, those are the things that carry me through to be able to, and then just being able to communicate and have a relationship with my wife. Those three things are really the keys in me kind of being able to reach this point where I'm at today, and where I think I will continue to grow and be able to succeed further on.
Shout out to Mrs. Harris for sure then.
Yeah.
Nate, what would you share for people, and you can say what you shared during the Male Youth Summit, what would you share for young men that look like us looking to get in the field that you are in today?
So, I mean, my field is a field that is full of networkers. It's a chance to get in. And when I was in school, a lot of folks told, um, a lot of kids were told, go in at the ground level and work your way up. And there's a lot of working your way up. However, it's really building the relationships to help you grow and work your way up. And I tell this to a lot of young people and a lot of my interns. I said, your network is going to get you in the door, but you doing the work is going to keep you in the door and open up the next door. And so that's really what my I guess my advice to a lot of young people who want to enter into the field of entertainment. And I will tell you this, you're probably not going to get super rich off of it unless you make it to the top, but you will be in an environment that is fun, an environment that is creative, an environment that is expressive, and an environment where people really just come together and can and enjoy sporting event, entertainment. But I will also say this, I will say, whatever it is you're passionate about, whatever it is that you want to be able to do, um, just do it and do the best that you can. It's imperative that whatever you end up doing, you work the hardest, you work the best, and you bring your best self to your work every single day. Because that is going to show not only to those who you do work with and who you work with as your colleagues, not only with those who you do business with in terms of your clients and your partners, but it's going to be also a testament to who you are as an individual, and it's going to propel you way beyond and way more than you do it. And the weirdest thing is hearing about people having conversations about you and you didn't even know they were. And it was because of the work that you had done, not necessarily the relationship that you had. So it's a combination of the two, and you really need to be able to focus on both of
Yeah, I really like that quote that networking will get you in the door, doing the work will keep you in the door. That's
those.
something
Absolutely.
I will for sure live by after today. And the cool thing about you that I connect with you on is that, um, well, I wasn't an athlete to the level that you were, but we are both still in the sports, arena because, not being an athlete is what really motivated me initially to want to be one day a sports consultant, performance consultant. And now with your position, I just imagine too for you, like you said in your first question, that that helped you to where you are today is having that taste of being an athlete and now staying in that arena with your current position.
Yeah, and I wasn't a major athlete. Let's not get the record messed up a little bit. I mean, I decided not to play in college, but I guess to the point of network, right? So my senior year in college, I decided to become a student manager and student coach, and it was with the women's basketball program at my school. And for many people, it was like, well, Nate, why are you going to work with women's college basketball? It wasn't so much about that. It was for me to figure out if coaching was the thing for me. It was a job, right? But also my internship that connected to a professional team, which happened to be my favorite team, was built off of just the head coach's former player having a job with the organization and connecting us to networking, getting in the door, keeping it in the door. And if the economy hadn't crashed, I probably still would be at that team. And so that is really the importance is sometimes you have to step outside your comfort zone to do things that you aren't necessary. I'll also tell another story. So after I graduated, and unfortunately in 2008 when the economy crashed, I moved back home to my parents. It was the last thing I wanted to do. Love my parents to death, but I didn't want to move back home. And I was very deliberate. No one was hiring full time for a kid who just came out of school who studied sport management, and it was I couldn't get a job anywhere. And I was very deliberate in the part-time jobs that I took. I ended up working 3 or 4 part-time jobs. One was with a parks and recreation department, and I was working in the maintenance crew as a scheduler, right? Now, you may say, well, that's not sports. What was interesting though was that every employee was a union employee, and I was required to do scheduling based off of the union rules that they had in place. So if you were to get booked for overtime, I had to make sure the seniority was correct. I had to make sure the number of hours that you had this past weekend was not going to max you for this next weekend. And it was a whole mathematical equation on who was going to be scheduled just to work the weekend. Enter into the arena business, I deal with unions. I deal with scheduling. I deal with all of those different things, right? Then I took another part job. It was a stipend job as athletic director at my former high school, a small private high school, 4 sports teams. But I learned how to hire coaches. I learned how to manage and develop young players. I learned how to schedule beyond just myself, but with other schools. I learned negotiating how people are going to travel. I worked out traveling logistics. All those things turned into real examples in my career. I ended up also taking a position. They actually promoted me and they made me run a summer camp one summer. Direct. I'm not going to run a summer camp. Learn me how to communicate with parents. Taught me how to communicate with people who are very passionate about their young people and what that looks like. How to be conflict resolution with 2 kids who wanted to fight at camp. All those things benefited me now in my career. And so I also encourage a lot of people who are looking to be able to say, I can't get in the door for what I want to do. Don't let the fact that the door's not open now stop you from doing the work that you need to do to get in the door. Because if you can continue to build on the skills that you'll need once you get into the door that you want to get into, you'll be more prepared to even go higher up in the next floor, the next floor, the next floor once you get in that door. That's because you've done the work prior to getting in the door.
I love that because often we think, how is this job, even if it's not related to my eventual career aspirations and goals, how the heck is it connecting? And what you just reminded us all is that skills you learn that may be unrelated will one day still benefit you with your current.
Absolutely.
So that's a great reminder. And I'd also, maybe off air, I'd like to learn who that team was because that's just so fascinating. The economy just playing that role, but just a lot of good bites right there, Nate.
Absolutely.
And what I like to know now is where can people reach you, Nate, if they want to continue the conversation and really learn and pick your brain out business?
Yeah, the best way on a professional level would be my LinkedIn page, and that's under Nathaniel Harris on my LinkedIn page. And I'll make sure you get the link for that. Also on my social media, Facebook is probably the best for professional reaching out, and just socially, I'm on Twitter. And my Facebook is Nathaniel Harris as well, and that's Nathaniel spelled with an AEL, not I. And then just for socially and just to kind of just connect and chat or whatever it may be, on Instagram and Twitter, I'm at Nate Harris 86. Um, and so those are my handles where people can reach out to me and just connect and let me know where you came from, so I'm not wondering who's reaching out to me.
Yeah, that'd be a good to know. It's not completely random for sure.
Exactly.
And Nate, my last overall question would be, from your experiences that you've shared and things you have to think of, as we continue to move forward in this world, what is something that you would like our white colleagues, friends, counterparts to take away from your experience, as well as something that you believe may be beneficial for them to be more aware of?
So I would kind of just say it this way. I said, and even for people of color, continue to learn, continue to teach yourself what it is, the reason why we're in this place, things that we can do for ourselves, check our own internal biases that we may or may not even realize we have, and then continue to help and educate others around you. And then stand up for what is right, no matter what the consequences. Those are my tips for anyone.
All right. Thank you, Nate, for your time. I'm really thankful that we've continued to, keep in touch, and you'll definitely be somebody when I become a father one day that I'll reach out, get your advice from, and I
Absolutely.
look forward to continuing not just this conversation, but just being, a successful person in society. You've shown that multiple times and in multiple ways, and again, just thank you for your great wisdom today and your time. Really
No,
appreciate it.
thanks for having me. I appreciate the chance to share with you and the chance to connect. And I hope there's something in there that helps somebody in the future. And I'm happy to help out wherever I can. And keep up the good work.
Thank you, Nate. Take care.